Welcome back to the Seriously Don't Do That podcast. I'm your host, Dan Griffith, the president of Grow with Dan. And tonight we're going to cover a DDT, a don't do that is very, very common, not only in startup businesses, but also even in more mature business. And that is, don't fall prey to the lie that everyone is my customer. So tonight's mug is going to be, we're going to call it the mystery mug, okay? So I'm going to hold it like this, but I'm not going to show you the rest. We'll see if any of you can guess what this is. Good evening, David.
Good evening. So your prior statement kind of seems like a buzzkill statement. Why isn't everyone my customer?
Well, I think this is the number one reason that small businesses, maybe even middle-sized businesses fail. David, it's because they don't know who their customer is. And I think they default to, well, everyone is my customer. Even if it's technically true, the world is a huge space. And when you're a small business, whether business to business or business to consumer, with what I would assume is probably a limited budget, you have to figure out who your customer is. I have the pleasure of talking to many venture capital and private equity firms in my day-to-day. And I've started asking them, what's the number one reason? And it will vary some, but inevitably not knowing or understanding who their customer is comes up every time. And there's a hint on this: less is more. So narrowing your customer focus typically results in more sales.
Okay, but what if I don't know who my customer is?
Well, that's a problem, right? And I see this in a lot of businesses, especially after they launch or even after they've been successful for a number of years. They will have to pause, either something like what's happened in the last year. We have a pandemic, the economy turns down, or like I say, they go through their friends and family, and then they have to go, okay, who is my customer? And again, like I mentioned before, they default to everyone. But there's really three ways that you can think about to try to figure out really who that customer is. The first is you need to ask, what pain or challenge or problem does your product or service solve? And then secondly, ask, who has that problem? What kind of businesses, what kind of people within those businesses, and will they pay to solve it? And then finally, I'd like to say, where do they live? Are they, is it geographic? Is it within a certain group of a company? Is it certain divisions within a company? But asking those questions will hopefully get you on the way to finding out who your customer is.
Well, I have been successful selling to everyone, so why should I change?
Well, David, not everybody is as awesome as you. And congrats, first of all. But second, I'd tell you to watch out, because many times when a new product, service, unique software comes on the market, that initial sales bounce is really just out of curiosity and people are interested in the product. But at some point, they have to pause and go, okay, we've hit this ceiling. Incidentally, that's normally where I'm engaging with companies a lot with what I do at Grow with Dan. But they have to think about the why and the how they've been successful. And it gets frustrating at that point because many times they don't know. And it gets to the point where you either break through or you break down. I worked with a company that received $1 billion valuation, which is a lot of money anytime. But it was right before the pandemic. And I did some work advising them. And what I realized really quickly is that they didn't know who their customer was. They had an idea of who their target customer was going forward, but they really didn't talk to their customers, find out why they bought, and like I say, tried to stay in their lane with those customers and grow in that market. And incidentally, they weren't very successful, and they, believe it or not, blew through a lot of money very, very quickly. So Sorry to end on the bummer note. I guess I started on a buzzkill note. Now I'm ending on a buzzkill bummer note. But no, you can learn who your customer is, but it definitely isn't everyone. And until next time, be well and grow. Next week, we're going to cover the topic, don't cold call or email. Talk a little bit about why you shouldn't do that and some alternatives to cold calling or emailing.